Bike life. How can we slowly change the public stigma surrounding hobbyist drone flight? You're not going to like the answer. So this is Flow State, the FPV drone documentary. It is a feature-length documentary about FPV.
Guy and thought, man,
if you somehow didn't know it existed, oh look, it's Aaron Ciotti. If you somehow didn't know it existed, it's on my YouTube channel. It's quickly on the way to become my most popular video ever uploaded. I was executive producer for this film. James Christensen was the director and editor and cameraman, and basically made almost all of the rest of the film. And I basically, what is the executive producer, guys? He puts up the money. I wanted to make a film. I had a vision for a film. I met James at a whoop race. We talked for a little while. He was a filmmaker. He was excited about FPV. He wanted to make a film about FPV. I was like, I've wanted to make a film about FPV for a while, and I'm willing to throw a little bit of money at it. Thank you, patrons. And we made this movie together. And there are many reasons why I made this movie, but one of them was that I wanted people outside the FPV community to see this movie and to see what we love about FPV so much, and maybe to see it in a more positive and a less threatening light. And I don't think that was successful. One of the reasons I don't think it was successful is that I don't think a lot of people outside the FPV community actually saw the movie. Maybe some did. But it never really, I wanted to get it, well, anyway, that's a story I've told before. It never got widespread distribution or marketing. That's a failure on my part more than anybody, because I don't know how to market and distribute a movie. And, you know, first time out the gate, you're going to screw some things up. But the other reason I don't think it was successful is that the story that people hear about drones is dominated by certain events. Like before 2020, let's draw the line at 2020, although that's maybe not the right place to draw the line, but it'll do. Before 2020, the reasons why people were scared of drones were all fantasy. Oh, I think the drone is looking in my windows. Not saying that has never in the history of time happened, but it was like people were way more scared of it than it had any right to be in terms of actual reality. And there was this idea that if we just showed people, no, drones are fun, FPV racing is fun, freestyle's awesome, then that story could overwhelm the negativity and fear. But that's not the world we live in right now. Right now, there are things happening in the world with FPV drones. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, but we're not talking about this week, so. But there are things happening that are dominating the public perception of drones. And those things are so impactful that it seems like there's no way to sort of counteract them. Oh, but wait, we also use drones for STEM and it's like, that's not going to capture the public imagination. And so what can we do to change the public perception about drones? I fear that there isn't anything we can do. We can try. It's noble to try. I'm going to keep making content about drones, and keep being a drone hobbyist, keep flying drones, and keep hopefully introducing people to drones. And maybe like this is a thing where in 30 years, people who grew up with drones and who aren't terrified of them and who know the truth about them will be influential enough that narrative can change. But right now, that isn't. I don't see that as being possible. So. I get Torpedo Law says, calling a quadcopter a drone versus a drone, interesting idea. I don't know. I feel like I don't know. I feel like we lost that one. I don't know if it matters. Like there's this idea that if individuals change their behavior, then you could turn some tide, and it doesn't usually work out. I'm not saying it never works out, but you have to know the forces that are arrayed against you. You know, if you're at the beach and you're digging a hole in the sand and some water gets in and you go, hold on, I'm going to bail this water out. You're going to lose that battle. The tide's coming in. You're not going to win that. And I don't know. I feel like there are situations in our lives where that's what's happening and maybe we just don't realize it. And it's tough because if you just assume that you're never going to win, then you just give up before you even start fighting, and then you never win. Self-fulfilling prophecy. But the flip side is that I see situations where people are going, hey guys, if we all just call it a quadcopter instead of a drone, then everything's going to be okay. And then they're all over there like, hey, so you called it a drone. That's why remote ID happened. If you guys had just called it a quadcopter instead of a drone, we wouldn't be here right now. You know? And it's like, guys, the tide's coming in. The tide's coming in, guys. There's no sense fighting over whose fault it is that the hole filled up with water. Yeah. Notice, I don't want to harp on this, but I think that's a really insightful question. And that's the kind of question I would hope that, like, if I was ever on Hot Ones, that Sean Evans would ask me. That's a really insightful question. I'm going to take the time to answer it, even though it means continuing to sort of beat on what's a little bit of a downer of a topic. But it's self-indulgent, but I'll allow it. Were you more positive and hopeful about people being able to influence change prior to putting an effort around remote ID and having it go through anyway? Absolutely.
Hey.
Yeah.
Sorry. Stop spinning that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got this. Thank you. You're ruining the audio. Thank you, Plenty. I think so. I don't think that I went into the remote ID fight with a naive sense of the likelihood of success. But I would say that I went into the remote ID fight with an awareness that it was likely to be a losing battle, but the energy to fight the fight anyway. And that I came out of it having spent energy, time, and money trying to fight it and watching others do the same. And I definitely would not say that we were ineffective. It would be disrespectful to people who are still fighting and are making, I don't want to say they're making gains, but, you know, it's a situation where we take 3 steps back instead of 5 steps back, or where things are bad but not quite as bad as they could have been. I think things are getting worse, but I definitely know there are people like the FPV Freedom Coalition, Dave Messina, Blunty, yourself, and others who are continuing to fight that fight. They're in the room with the decision makers. They're on the phone, and they're doing their best. And there are concrete gains that they have gotten that we wouldn't have gotten if they hadn't been doing that work. And I commend them for it. I don't want to disrespect that by saying that I came out of that fight feeling like 90% of the bad things that we didn't want to happen happened, and that the people who made those decisions were essentially not listening at all to our voices, to most of our voices, and that it was always going to come out that way. That 10% that didn't come true, like, that's why feeling hopeless is then it would be even worse, right? But I definitely came out of that with less enthusiasm for the next fight, if you will. But that's why I'm glad there's other people out there who have that energy and can keep that up. And I don't really like Dave Messina. Most of you guys have no idea who Dave Messina is. And if you don't know who he is, like, I've talked to him, I've interviewed him many times. And I have so much admiration for the sheer amount of energy and positivity that he has. This guy goes into meetings with government regulators and legislators and, I don't know, lobbyists, the kind of people who will suck the life out of you, who you will spend hours and hours trying to convince them that you're right, and then lose almost every point but win 1 point. And I don't know how he doesn't just say, F it, I've got better things to do with my day. But every time I talk to him, he's so energetic and so enthusiastic about what he's doing. And I guess he just likes it. And I'm so glad there's people like him out there. Anyway.
Befriend a rich person.
Befriend a rich person. That's the thing. That's the thing. Like the myth is, like, if we all just pick up the phone and write letters, then, and the truth is that's a myth.
Yeah,
because
you need somebody who, like, has a bunch of money and wants to spend it on lobbying the U.S. government to fix this. And that's what will fix this. Unfortunately, that's what I've seen so far in my experience with it,
Yeah.
Is like the real moving and changing happens through lobbying. And the problem is recreational doesn't have money in lobbying. All the,
Right.
not like, now RDQ and Get FPV are the same company, but it's not like, owned by the same company, but it's not like, if all the FPV retailers got together, right, and made a big conglomerate, and then they all pitched in some fees, which they're never going to do this. That's the problem, right? Because we're not a big enough industry, I think. But if they all did that and then pitched in for lobbying on their behalf, right, like that would help, right? Yeah. But they don't have the money or resources, and we're not big enough to do that, right? We're talking about recreational consumer drones are really DJI drones and that sort of thing. And DJI had no progress there. And really, they're not allowed to lobby in the same way we are as Americans. And it's a whole thing, right? But there's nobody fighting for us because we don't have money to fight for us, right? Like FPVFC's there and AMA is kind of there, but like there's no funding to push the lobbying to get things changed really. Like we're trying to make pleas and we're not trying to make like monetary demands through friends or whatever, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the reality is that all those phone calls and, like, again, there are times where letter writing or phone calling campaigns, public action campaigns, have had an effect, but they're probably organized by people with money. And I just The older I've gotten, great way to start a story. Everyone now tunes out. The more I've come to think that the decisions about the things that affect our lives as ordinary people. I've been watching The Boys. There's a superhero, and I think that one of the themes of The Boys is that there's these superheroes with superpowers, and they are essentially completely separate from ordinary humans because of the magnitude of their powers. And that, like, ordinary humans, like, decides he's going to do something, and the human is like, they can beg and they can plead, and ultimately they're just going to do whatever they want. There's almost no way for ordinary humans to actually influence and, they have to try really hard to influence these superheroes at all. And the superheroes can just crush them. And I feel like, and I think this was intentional, that's an analogy for modern government, that decisions are made at a level that ordinary people never see. And I know that there are people that take this into shadow government conspiracy terms. I'm not going there. I'm just saying the normal mundane halls of government and the public opinion, the opinion of 1 or even 50,000 people in the public, isn't even a dot on the radar. Like, in order to get elected, they pretend that they care, and they say the right mouth words to get the votes. And then the decisions that are being made. I have in my life. Okay, I'm going to be very vague for reasons which hopefully you'll understand. In my life, I have had the privilege of being in the room when people with actual power were making decisions about things that were happening in the world. And I walked away from that experience, and there were other people outside that room who were writing letters or making vlogs or making TikToks or having sit-ins or doing whatever kind of public action they thought was going to make a difference. And then I saw the people with actual power make decisions and enact those decisions, and it had nothing, nothing. They're just like, and it wasn't, I think, that they like didn't care. It was just that didn't matter. It wasn't a factor in the decision making. You know? So like, public outcry has to get really, really big before it even moves that needle at where the people with actual power are making decisions about what's going to happen to your life. And the takeaway to sort of bring this all back home is remote ID, drone regulations. What are the things that the people in power care about? What do they care about? They care about not having a disaster where a hostile actor does something horrific, right? They care about that. They care about lobbyists making campaign donations. They care about these things, and I don't think our letter writing really rises to much of a. I don't think it matters. But that's how I feel tonight. And other people feel differently, and they write letters and they do things, and sometimes they win, I guess. I think that the 25-year-old me who thought that if I just tried hard enough, I could change the world was really naive. You know? And a lot of people feel that way about their 20s, so maybe I'm just getting older.